So joining me now, political historian and independent political analyst, Rich Rubino. Rich, great to see you. All right, as a political historian, what is your reaction specifically to the kickoff of this renovation that is also including partial demolition to the East Wing when it was originally stated that it would not interfere with the existing White House structure?
Yes, and I think the president is basically averring that this will not be taxpayers' money. This will be private funding, including, as he says, your truly. But he's really, as small the numbers this might be to actually the $250 million that it will cost, again, all private money toward the renovations, he's giving political fodder to the Democrats. The Democrats in the midterm elections can argue. People are losing SNAP benefits, for example. People are losing their Medicaid funding. But in the meantime, the president is supporting a $250 million ballroom. That may be fair or unfair, but I think he's giving ammunition to the Democrats to make that charge.
But what do you think about this demolition that is taking down some of the East Wing when, again, it was said that it would not do that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the that's obviously one of the questions, and the fact that they are actually demolishing it. You can actually see the demolition. There certainly have been examples of this in history. For example, of White House renovations, Chester A. Arthur and put some new plumbing in, put a new elevator in. Benjamin Harrison in 1891 actually had electricity installed in the White House, but he was so afraid to use it that they wouldn't turn off the lights.
All right, so talk about the mark that President Trump is leaving, on the footprint that is the White House and the surrounding grounds, and of course, including the significant changes to the Rose Garden where he'll be hosting that luncheon. What is the historical significance for future generations?
I think that the ballroom will potentially be able to seat up, as he says, 990 people. That's going to be a huge ballroom. That's, as he would say, a huge ballroom. It's something that I think future generations will kind of look and I think take for granted potentially. But obviously, it's going to be a major renovation in the meantime, and there's going to probably be a little bit some hindrances. Certainly, won't be aesthetically pleasing as it's being built. But I think in the future, you certainly will see a huge ballroom.
Do you think an upgrade like this was needed?
I don't know, probably not. I think that there are probably more important issues. Now, that being said, I think that the president will make the case, and you hear this governors make this case sometimes when it comes to renovating the office or potentially something to that effect. I know Deval Patrick in Massachusetts got in trouble for trying to renovate his office. It became an issue, and that I think that once again, I think this is something the Democrats really, as they go into the midterm elections, are really going to be using this as political fodder, to excoriating the president, saying people are losing their benefits. Meanwhile, the president is living lavishly. He's living in the Gilded Age, that type of a thing. So from a purely pure calculated political standpoint, he's giving the Democrats some ammunition here.
All right, yeah, let's get into more of the politics of this. So critics, as you pointed out, are saying corporate America is kind of currying favor for access to the Trump administration. The president, though, he's standing by this. He said on Truth Social yesterday, he's, quote, honored to be the first president to finally get this much needed project underway with zero cost to the American taxpayer. That is his post on Truth Social yesterday. Rich, do you think each side has a valid point here?
Yes, I think the president certainly does have a valid point in terms of the East Wing not being big enough to accommodate guests. But I also think that the Democrats certainly, and I think that they were really handed. They were really handed something that really benefits them from a political standpoint, again, because it is during a government shutdown, because they can make the argument that, the president is building this, the president is having this build, is worrying about the East Wing. Meanwhile, we're worrying about our families, something to that effect. I think you'll see some Democrats potentially in the 2026 presidential elections as they run against the Republican opponents like the three, for example, Republican moderates like Mike Lawler in New York or Congressman Fitzpatrick in Pennsylvania, saying they're the party of the president who's building this new ballroom. Meanwhile, we're worrying about Medicaid, we're worrying about SNAP benefits, we're worrying about a lot of other government programs. And I think he's basically giving he's giving the Democrats a gift here, and to see how they use it and to see what kind of political dexterity Hakeem Jeffries and his coefficients have here in terms of the Democrats using this as really a cudgel against Republicans, if you will.
Yeah, we'll certainly see if that happens. Last question for you, Rich. I mean, what do you think a project of this scale, more than $200 million privately funded dollars, what does that mean going forward for future administrations?
Well, I think that this is going to be a legacy that was left by the Trump administration. Many presidents leave legacies. I think that President Truman, they had an extreme renovation, and literally the White House was gutted in 1948 to 1952. What this means potentially, it might give carte blanche for an administration in the future, 20, 30 years down the road, to potentially try to renovate another part of the White House, if you will. It's a legacy, and it's something that a president can give to the next generation. But it's obviously something, though, that I think very few people 20, 30 years down the road will remember a president for. They're more remembered for their policies, if you will, as opposed to what they've done to the White House. But obviously, it is certainly part and parcel of that political legacy.
What do you think it means, though, as far as the privately funded aspect of it? Do you think we will see more of that going forward?
Yes, I do. And I think certainly companies that potentially maybe want to curry favor with the administration in power, whether it's this administration or whether it's future administrations, donate any money for some sort of a renovation to the White House is very much a gift that they're getting, I think, in respect to helping out the president. So I think that you might see this in the future because, again, this is no taxpayer money, but if it's with private companies, then obviously those private companies, you can make the argument, whether it's fair or not, that there might be some sort of a quid pro quo there.
All right. Rich Rubino, really great talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on again.